Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of FinServ Tech Oracles. I'm Johna Till Johnson, and I'm super psyched to be here with special guest Raja Chris, who is the CISO and Managing Director at Annaly Capital. Raja, welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm very, very happy to hear,
Uh,
especially with you. Yeah.
yeah. So, for this episode, I know we talked about this when we were prepping, but I asked you what was top of mind for you right now. And one of your answers was protecting PII and specifically confidential computing. What can you tell us about that?
As a lot of the breaches and the Foster report by SEC rule, but we always, as a Annaly, the largest real estate trust in the industry, we're always looking a way to more and more secure the data. And the confidential computing is to secure the data, not on the transit, not on the rest, totally entire the journey of the data. So that's a confidential computer. So how do you? That's a point of how to create the zero trust environment for the data and the code. So in case like you're running a code, if somebody has shared environment, they can dump the memory and get the data. So how do you get that to be fully confidential? That part of it. So that break it down to four area,
Mm-hmm.
Jonah. Isolation, protection, verify, and the future proofing it. Right. There's isolation. What is it? The isolation mean running in a trusted execution environment. Trusted execution environment. That means can we modernize virtualize the CPU and the infrastructure, the cloud infrastructure into hardware enforced isolation to protect the data, uh, but by users or by API or software-based requests, regardless of the privilege level. That's the isolation part of it, right? The second, you go and say protect the data, right? Encrypt the data into all three stages. We everybody familiar with the data in transit and the data at
Mm-hmm.
rest. But in this case, we are looking at a confidential level. That means data in use encrypted inside the trusted execution environment and the control the data at the rest and in transit to prevent the data leaves in the confidential computing environment. So the confidential computing is end-to-end solution. Wrap the data always encrypted, always used by the right people, not by any kind of eavesdropping. The third is verifying it, right? Uh, Make sure the privilege and encryption are done properly. It's a right authentication itself. So that means the confidential computer had to be tapped into. If you're using a Active Directory, that has to be tied into that environment, right? That's where the verifying the authentication of it. The
And
last, go
the
ahead.
fourth one? I was just gonna ask, what's the fourth one
Fourth
again?
one is a future proofing, right?
Right.
So the future proofing that mean any the new API comes in, right? How do they tap into it, right? Do we need to require a change, code to support it, or just the one line able to join that environment, right? And so that's a future proofing. Any kind of future enhancement coming in, any new data, any API links comes in, is always had to be same tap into that environment easily.
So basically, just to repeat, it's
Mhm.
isolate, protect, verify, and
And
future
future proofing.
proof.
Yeah.
And highlighting that protect, I find it interesting that you basically blow up the whole notion of protection in transit, protection at rest, and say it's got to be end to end wherever the data is
And
and
in use, that's
in
a key,
use. Yeah.
right? That's a piece we always didn't think about
Yeah.
it. Somebody can have access to that environment. They can dump your memory.
Mm-hmm.
There goes, right? In this case, you dump the memory, especially in the cloud environment, and you get nothing, right? That's a plan.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
So earlier we talked about two different approaches to confidential computing, hardware based and software based. And you expressed the opinion that software based was superior. Can you explain why?
The software based can be uh, this hardware based. Number one is expensive, quite expensive, especially now.
Mhm.
You say you buy an Nvidia product or something, it's pretty quite expensive to create that, right? And also it's very hard to where the extended use of the application or APIs or you're using external product to end to end have the confidential computing, it's a quite a bit challenging unless it's a software base, right? That's why the software base is much become a more uh, better way to look at the things. All right, so that's why we look into software based rather than hardware based.
And just a question on that. I know that you had previously said that one of the big advantages, aside from cost, is that software based is flexible and travels with the document. Does
Mm.
it also particularly help with the future proofing? I would imagine it would.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the future proving, say somebody have mobile app, right?
Hmm.
More and more mobile apps, right? So that encryption go to the mobile app. The data at in use at the mobile app should be encrypted, right? So even on your mobile app, it's encrypted unless you authenticated access the data. So if you the data code somebody hack into this, forward it to the email to Yahoo or Gmail, that data, even as attachment or something, the data is still attached to the mothership. Of course, confidential computing mothership. You have to give the key to open the data, right? So that's where the advantage comes in. Does it make sense?
Absolutely. And I think just to step back and put this in the broader context, before we kicked off this morning, you and I were talking about the fact that 2024 is really not the year to back down on your cybersecurity efforts, particularly if you're a financial services firm, because two things are happening. Number one, the SEC has gotten a whole lot more
Mhm.
demanding in terms of reporting and what constitutes a material breach. And also with the whole supply chain issue of third parties and third party risk.
Mhm.
And the other side of the coin is that there are more attacks and there are more sophisticated attacks that continues to grow, but the fact that AI has come along and made it easier for the attackers and not necessarily better for the defenders is kind of a key piece. So it sounds like what you're further saying is put confidential computing at the top of your list.
Agree.
Okay.
And
Which yeah,
not
go
only
ahead.
that, put it yep, not only put in the top of the list, right? It's the more they're required to now you have to report it. That means you are part of the now you're behind the SOC audit. That means if you're a public
Right.
company, and now people like EY or PwC and all the external auditors, they want to audit you now, right? Because it's a there's a reward for them. They get a now chargeable hours one side, and they are required to audit second part now because make sure the part of the reporting of you are accurate. There are no breaches from your side. So that somebody had to verify it, and the external auditor has to do the job. So you might have to spend more money to even at least tighten up this piece. Even you have all the pieces for audit purpose or other pieces, you do have to spend money on cybersecurity this year.
Absolutely. So that's it. That's all we have time for, folks. Thank you for watching and listening. Please register for the entire series online if you are interested. And thank you, Raja. This was a good heads up on the
Thank you.
importance of confidential computing. So,
Awesome.
folks, listeners, please tune in next week at 0900 for the next episode of FinServ Tech Oracles, which is right before the markets open on Tuesdays. Thank you.
Thank you.